Have the LA Kings improved from last season? Will this be Anze Kopitar's last year? We will ask Russell Morgan from Hockey Royalty these questions and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season's around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show that recaps the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. We are happy to be joined by one of my favorite guests. He is Russell Morgan from Hockey Royalty. You can check out his work at hockeyroyalty.com. There's also a Hockey Royalty podcast, which you can find on Apple Podcasts. And you can also follow him on X and Twitter at NHL Russell. Hey, Russell, how are you?
I'm doing good, Eddie. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Hopefully we'll see each other in person in the not too distant future, as I plan on being out there for a lot of training camp this year. I know you've always been great about being out there for practices and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully I can join you a little bit more often out there, and of course at the games as well. But great to have you back on the show. The last time we spoke, Ken Holland was recently named the general manager, and we got together and kind of speculated on what kind of things could he do to improve the team. Well, now the team is apparently set for next season, and I wanted to get your reaction on some of the things that have transpired since we last spoke. And let's start with a player that you had mentioned that you wouldn't be all that disappointed if he actually wasn't back with the Kings, and that, of course, is defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov. You had mentioned you didn't know if the price that you thought, what was going to take to re-sign him was something that the Kings should go in for. Well, he, in fact, of course, did not resign with the Kings. Now a member of the New York Rangers, 7 years, $7 million per season. Personally, I would have been fine paying him that price. I don't know if that number specifically changes your mind or not. What are your thoughts on what he was ultimately paid, and him apparently choosing New York over LA, apparently?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't want to discredit how good Gavrikov was. Just as recently as last year, he was voted the number one defenseman on the Kings by the LA media, and rightfully so. With Drew Doughty out, he was pretty much the guy who saved the defense, or pretty much saved the team, and I guess saved the season almost, moving from the left side to the right and playing with Mikey Anderson. So, you got to give him a ton of credit for his play. Pretty much in his entire career in LA, I thought he was great, played a lot better than what I expected coming over from Columbus. So I got to put that out there. But you kind of look at the contract he was kind of looking for, and it had really, I don't know if it had anything to do with the money amount, but the years is what always kind of stuck with me. And when you had a guy with that kind of play style being signed for 6 to 7 years, that, I don't know, it doesn't really excite me that much. And it's hard because, like I just said, like with how good he was and how good the team was defensively, to lose a player like that is a tough pill to swallow. But I feel like the Kings are able to get really good value from those type of players on lesser cap hits or lesser deals. And I think they did that with bringing in Brian Dumoulin. So with Gavrikov leaving, I don't feel like that's going to be that big of a hole to fill. I feel like with Dumoulin or whoever they were been able to find, look what they've been able to do with other defensemen coming over. Joel Edmondson had pretty much like a career year coming over to LA. Andreas Englund was able to play a full 82-game season and only played 82 games his entire career in LA. And we can debate how good those two players played, but the Kings were still able to make the playoffs with those players. And even though we all know what happened in those playoffs, they were still able to be one of the top defensive teams in the NHL with those type of players on the roster. So I feel like with other players maybe coming in now that we have Brian Dumoulin now pretty much taking Gavrikov's role, I don't know if it'll be that big of a drop off, and I could be eating my words here in a few months. We'll see what happens, but I think with how things have gone just recently with Coach Hiller, and I guess pretty much how the team has been playing even before Hiller with McClellan too as well, we haven't seen those type of defenders pretty much be, I guess, targeted and be a weakness for the team. They've been pretty strong for the team. So I feel if they can have Dumoulin be that type of Gavrikov light, I don't think the Kings will be worried at all with losing him.
I don't know if we are ever going to get an answer to this question, but I don't know if Gavrikov left because he just wanted to go to New York. I don't know if he left because he got a better deal. I don't know if he left because he was maybe upset with the role that he kind of returned to once Drew Doughty came back. Maybe he thought he deserved to be on the top pairing. There's a lot of kind of unanswered questions when it comes to him. Do you have a read on kind of the whole situation? And do you think he wanted to come back to LA? Did he just take the best deal that was offered, or it was kind of a strange departure in my mind? Because I'd always thought he was coming back, to be honest. If he got a decent deal, that he wanted to stay, and it kind of seemed like that maybe wasn't the case.
Right. I mean, especially when we heard from Rob Blake, I think toward the trade deadline, when he would talk about Gavrikov, it had almost seemed like a slam dunk that he was going to be back. And that was what we all assumed. I think once Ken Holland came in, me personally, I don't think the Kings ever were willing to match the contract. That's just my line. I know a lot of people think that that's kind of crazy, but I don't think they were ever willing to match that contract. I mean, when you go out and give players like Cody Ceci 4 years and whatever the contract is, you give him 4 years, you give a Brian Dumoulin like 3 years. Those aren't just fallback options. Those are targeted deals. You don't give fallback options multi-year deals. Andrei Kuzmenko was a fallback option for losing out on Mitch Marner. So you go out and give him a 1-year deal and you kind of fill that hole and see what happens going forward. So me personally, I don't know if the Kings were ever willing to match that 7-year deal with Gavrikov. We'll see if that comes back to bite them. But yeah, I'm with them. Like if I was the GM, I wouldn't have done it either, to be honest with you.
Couple of Jordan Spence questions. He gets traded to Ottawa. I don't think anyone was surprised that he did get traded. A little bit surprised. I thought he might be part of a package that brought a player back in return instead of just getting picks. Your thoughts on that? And also, I was surprised when it was all, resolved, if you want to call it that, how quickly he kind of seemed to fall out of favor because, I've watched him throughout his career. I thought he was okay. I'm not sitting here saying he was some key piece in the moment for the Kings, succeeding or not in the playoffs, but I didn't think he was a guy that I watched and thought, oh man, we've got to address this situation. But it seemed like he really quickly fell out of favor and was out the door.
Yeah, the Jordan Spence thing it disappoints me. And it's not that they're losing like a great player. Like he's a good player. I'm not going to overstate like how great of a player he is. Like he's a quote unquote like good third pair defenseman on a good team. And maybe for another team that maybe finds a better way to utilize that type of player, he can excel a little bit further than he would have in LA. But like when you're around like those type of young players that have all kind of come up together, you put Jordan Spence in the same realm with Quentin Byfield, Alex Turcotte, Alex Laferriere, Brant Clark. These are all players that have all grown together and have gone through all these struggles in the playoffs all pretty much together. And I feel like that's like a new wave that could have been built to say, hey, we're kind of part of this now. Like maybe the last few years they've been maybe the new guys, new blood saying, okay, let's just kind of see how things go and maybe go through the playoffs, get our experience. But now that they've all been through it these last few years together, they've all seen what has happened. They've all seen how disappointed other players, I'm sure they just get just as disappointed as those veteran players do. But now that they've kind of gone through it together, it's just like something that they maybe can grow together with. And it's just to give out a player like that and to say that you can't really find a roster spot for him on every night or every game, it just felt so disappointing to lose that type of player. And like I said, we'll see we'll revisit this and see how things go. I mean, when you replace him with a player like Cody Ceci, who isn't necessarily the analytical darling that Jordan Spence is, and I know they've two different types of players, and their deployment's absolutely different. So we'll see what happens there. But it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way that you were able to throw away such a good story in Jordan Spence, who was a 4th round pick out of the Q, who came up and turned into a quality NHL player who was able to warrant a couple draft picks in a trade. To throw away a player like that, it's really disappointing.
All right, we're going to get more into the new players that have been brought in. We're doing that with Russell Morgan here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. You can take a flyer on the MVP race. FanDuel has Lamar Jackson of the Ravens as the favorite right now. Crown your champion in August. FanDuel has the Bills, Ravens, and Eagles all at plus 700 as your Super Bowl favorites. And you can also look for division winner dark horses. How about Russell's Chargers? They're plus 320 to win the AFC West. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, we have Russell Morgan with us once again from hockeyroyalty.com. Russell, want to get into the offseason moves, and Ken Holland adds 2 veteran forwards and Corey Perry and Joel Armia. You mentioned Brian Dumoulin, a defenseman, and Cody Ceci, and Anton Forsberg comes in as the backup goalie. Before we get specifically into those guys, your thoughts on this group as a whole to improve the LA Kings?
Yeah, it's not necessarily the group I'm sure a lot of people would have wanted to come to LA. I guess I like to separate them by the forward group and the defense group, because up front, I think we all kind of know that the Kings were interested in Mitch Marner and were one of the teams that wanted to bring him in. Priya LeBrun had that report that the Kings were willing to fly to Toronto to meet with Mitch Marner, but it certainly seems that he always had his eyes set on Vegas. So that was really out the door. I thought they did really well in bringing back Andrei Kuzmenko on a 1-year deal at only $4.3 million. I mean, we saw what Kuzmenko did coming over after the trade deadline, not only on the power play, but I mean, at 5-on-5 too. I think that was really surprising, his impact in that department as well. But yeah, at the forward front, this is probably the deepest. I mean, we talked about it the last few years where we say, oh, this team is really deep, but I think now for sure I can say this is probably the deepest up front that the Kings have ever been. When you have a player like Corey Perry, who we all know what Corey Perry is. We all know his history, especially being LA fans. I think when you have that added element on the fourth line and his kind of sandpaper, that's definitely an element that the Kings desperately needed. And then not to mention Joel Armia, who can be Trevor Lewis 2.0. I mean, he's definitely an upgrade in that department too. So up front, I think Ken Holland did extremely well. And I think this is a forward group that can rival a lot of the forward groups in the Pacific Division. It's the defense that we're all concerned about, right? I mean, you have a player, we talked about Brian Dumoulin, where I don't think it'll be that big of a drop-off, but we don't know. So when you lose a player like Gavrikov, who was voted the best defenseman, but then you have Cody Ceci, who we've all seen the highlights. We've all watched Cody Ceci from afar, or I guess up close and personal, watching him in Edmonton and then last year in Dallas. When you go and target those type of players, that the Kings have been targeting the last few years, we've seen what the results have been. And when you're not willing to change the dynamic of the blue line and kind of continue to go with these stay-at-home defensemen who aren't willing to get the puck out, who constantly ice the puck when it's late with less than a minute left in the third period and you're up by one, trying to desperately hold the lead, you ice the puck and you continue to have the face-offs in your own zone. We saw what happened to the Kings last year when that happened. So it's just disappointing that they're continue to kind of lean into that mindset on the blue line with obviously Jim Hiller, who loves that type of play and that loves that type of blue liner. It's something that hasn't worked lately. So that's where I get really disappointed, and to see that Ken Holland continue to not only lean into it just for the near future, but for the long term with 4 years to Cody Ceci. It's frustrating.
Well, you had mentioned the last time we spoke about getting more of a veteran presence on the fourth line, and the Kings absolutely did that with Perry and Armia. So I think pretty much everyone can say, and it is a fourth line, but we saw how important that potentially can be in the playoffs with the distribution of minutes and all those kinds of things. And we know that Perry and Armia have played some pretty significant playoff minutes in their careers. I do want to ask you though about Corey Perry. I know, look, there are other people out there who cover the Kings. I don't know what their level of fandom is. I know you and I kind of wear that on our sleeves a bit, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. It's difficult for me when I saw Corey Perry, even though my brain tells me I understand why they did it, and I don't even disagree with the theory that he can be that kind of player that can help us, that we need that kind of a guy. But seeing him in a Kings uniform is going to be hard for me. I am willing to be open-minded and consider that maybe I'll get used to it if he can help the team. But how are you personally feeling about Corey Perry in a Kings uniform?
I think we've just reached that point of desperation that we're willing to go out and get a player like Corey Perry, to be honest with you. I mean, it's funny because before when he was a free agent a few years ago, before he signed with Chicago, I actually wanted the Kings to go out and get Corey Perry. Then he ended up signing in Chicago. He got like a ridiculous deal. And then I was like, okay, I'm glad we didn't match that. And then, of course, he goes to Edmonton and then taunts the Kings even further. But yeah, I feel like we're at that point and level where the Kings desperately needed a Corey Perry on the roster. And you can say, like, just leave his history aside. I mean, when you have a player who's willing to muck it up like he is at least in front, in the net front, I mean, who on the Kings lineup has been able to do that recently? Because it hasn't really been anybody. I mean, the Kings, some of these Kings players and maybe some of these younger players kind of need somebody who's willing to like throw them into the fight or pull them and drag them into the fight. So maybe that helps out a player like Quentin Byfield or Alex Ferrier or some of these younger guys who maybe aren't necessarily the mean type. But now that you have Corey Perry playing in your wing, who's not afraid to give some sucker punches here or there, I think that's going to help them a little bit too.
Yeah, I know some people have suggested to me if he can, do something to get the oil under the Oilers' skin, do something in the first game against Edmonton, maybe a big hit on a key player. That could probably go a long way in helping some people start to feel a little better about him. But it's going to be difficult to see him in that uniform. It'll be very, very odd on opening night. The defense, you talked about it. Brian Dumoulin, Cody Ceci. I think Dumoulin is okay if he's on the second pairing, which I think he's going to be. Cody Ceci, though, is the for me, and I know all the hand wringing about him and everything, and I get it. I talked to JD Young, who's the host of Locked On Sharks. He said, look, if he's on your third pairing, he's fine. But the question for me is that where he's going to be? I know people have suggested to me they're not paying him like a third pairing defenseman, and that's true. But I can't. The one thing that I really am going to be really upset about is if Brandt Clarke doesn't get the opportunity to take that step forward because he's stuck playing third pairing minutes. Do you anticipate Cody Ceci being on that third pairing? Do you think Brandt Clarke gets that opportunity this year to kind of take that step forward? Because I don't feel like he's going to get that opportunity if he's on the third pairing.
Yeah, if you ask me right now, I mean, I'm right with you, Eddie. If you ask me right now, like who I believe is going to be playing more minutes this year if they were both healthy, Cody Ceci or Brandt Clarke, I'd probably say Cody Ceci. If the Kings are holding a lead late in the game, who do you think Jim Hiller is going to trust more to hold that lead? It's not going to be Brandt Clarke. I mean, we've all seen his deployment. I know there's been a lot of talk with Ken Holland talking about how, oh yeah, Brandt Clarke's going to take the next step and we want him to take the next step. Okay, well, I need to see it first. So right now, I'm really questioning whether that's going to happen. So like you said, they're paying Cody Ceci. They're not paying him third pair money. And we've seen how he's been deployed not only on the Oilers, I mean, not on the Stars last year and the Oilers before that. I mean, just his entire career, he's been a top four defenseman. I mean, just as recent as last year with the Stars, I believe he was on the top pair with Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley at times. So yeah, that's the disappointing part is when you have a player like Cody Ceci, and we all know this coaching staff, how they lean into those type of players, and that he's going to be taking some minutes away from Brandt Clarke, who I feel can be that next heir apparent to Drew Doughty and should be getting those, not even just offensive minutes on power play minutes. He should be getting just all around minutes. Like I'd rather see him holding a lead than Cody Ceci, because like I said earlier, like when we saw against the Oilers series this past Oilers series, when the Kings were trying to hold those late third period leads and they were sending out Gavrikov and Edmondson together, they just couldn't get the puck out of the zone. And a lot of that is because they don't have that skill to be able to kind of beat that, maybe on that rushing forechecker in front of them, to beat them that one-on-one, make that one-on-one move to get the puck out of the blue line and without icing it. And I think Brant Clark can do that. But when you have Cody Ceci, Joel Edmondson, Gavrikov out there, I really question if they're able to do that. So that's the frustrating part of all of this, is whether or not Brant Clark's going to get the minutes that he deserves.
And I don't want this to come off the wrong way, because the regular season obviously is important. But to me, everything the Kings do in the regular season has to be with playoff success in mind. So that's, to me, almost, yes, the regular season has to be important and valued to get into the playoffs, or else it doesn't matter. But I just think everything they do needs to prepare for playoff success. And to me, that is getting Brant Clark ready for those situations. So I hope that's what they do. But as you said, I can understand maybe that not being the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I don't know, the regular season now, we've gotten to a point where it's like, okay, like just get me to April. I mean, yeah. I don't think it's wrong to say that the Kings are most likely going to be a playoff team. I think I was looking at the odds the other day, and they're like the fourth highest odds to make the playoffs in the Western Conference. I think they have the same odds as the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, you look at what the rest of the Pacific Division has done. I mean, the Ducks, they didn't really do much. They got Mikael Granlund, but I mean, I think, and then Chris Kreider as well, but I'm not really that sold on them. The Sharks are still kind of in that rebuild mode. Vancouver's kind of, we'll see what happens there. Calgary's also rebuilding. So it's probably going to be the same three teams. I mean, as we sit here right now, middle of August, it's going to be, Eddie, we're going to be getting to April, and it's going to be previewing. You're going to be doing a preview of the Oilers-Kings season playoff series for Chapter 5. I mean, that's what it's going to be, right? I mean, at this point, I just want them maybe to win the division. Maybe we get a different wild card team that the Kings get faced, and that's the real kind of reward, I guess, for watching a long, drawing out regular season. But now at this point, like you said, we just got to give minutes to Brant Clark in those crucial situations. Give those minutes to Alex Laferriere, Quentin Byfield, who I think has gotten those minutes in recently. But I mean, all these young players who need to take maybe that next step to where you're finding now they're more comfortable when it comes to the playoffs. So you don't have to worry about deploying them in those crucial minutes. So, I mean, because we saw that just as recently as last year, where, I mean, Jordan Spence had one maybe shaky first start in game one, and then he couldn't play the rest of the series. He just couldn't find any minutes. And it was pretty much the same thing with Brant Clark. I think he was scratched one of the games. And then sure enough, they both come in and score in game 6. It's just, okay, like, why couldn't we figure this out before the playoff series started? Why do we have to get to this point where now we're trying to find minutes for them in the playoffs? So, yeah, I think this regular season, I'm not trying to discredit like the regular season, because obviously we love watching hockey and we love watching the Kings play, but it's got to be maybe more of a development part for some of these younger players who, now that they've got their feet wet in the NHL, now it's time for them to take the next step. Let's have Quentin Byfield lead the team in ice time. Let's have Brant Clark not play a third pair role and find spot starts here and there. Let's give him some power play minutes that maybe Drew Doughty was getting at times. So I think that's what we're maybe going to be looking for a little bit more during this regular season. And also Alex Turcotte, who I feel like who's going to be getting fourth line minutes playing alongside Corey Perry and Yoel Armia. We saw how the fourth line was deployed in this playoff series last year. I mean, those guys got to be playing way more in the playoffs. And I feel like they will, especially with Perry and Armia. So, I mean, with Turcotte, Brant Clark, Quentin Byfield, all these young players who now needs to be the next wave coming in to maybe take the reins from some of these vets. I think that's what's going to be the crucial part of the regular season here.
All right, couple more questions with Russell Morgan. We'll talk Anze Kopitar. Is this the last season? That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You just realized your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs. Put your post at the top of the page. Helps you reach the right candidates faster. If you've been in a spot where you need to hire right away, the pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback, that's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. You'll make sure that your post is seen by the right candidates right now. And now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, we're wrapping it up with Russell Morgan from Hockey Royalty. Follow him on X and Twitter at NHL Russell. Big question going into this season. I know it's some people have kind of speculated on this, but of course, Anze Kopitar, 20th season, final year of his contract. He's said he doesn't want to talk about it until after the season, which to me indicates that he doesn't really know how, it kind of depends on how this season goes. What do you think about this potentially being the last season for one of the greatest Kings ever in Anze Kopitar?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty sad if he does hang him up. I mean, we all see it coming. It's the sunset years are here. I don't know though. We'll see. I mean, Kopitar isn't one to kind of shine in the spot or wants the spotlight on him. I wouldn't be surprised if he just doesn't say anything, and all of a sudden, I think the Dustin Brown thing, right at the end of the year, he was just like, "Hey, I'm retiring." By the way, at the end of the year, we're like, "Oh crap." Well, so I would hope that he maybe announces something or lets us know maybe once training camp comes around, says this is going to be his final year, so that way the fans can give his rightful dues and go watch him play for one last time. But who knows? I mean, we've seen Kopitar really not have necessarily a big dip. I know he's not the spry young Kopitar that we remember from years past, but I think he's not necessarily like a bad player to have on the lineup. He's still can be a quality top 6 center in the NHL, not just on this team, but across the league. So we'll see how this season goes for him. I don't know if it'll be this last year. He hasn't really hinted at it. Well, he has kind of hinted at it at times. I remember him talking about it last year, saying how the road trips were a little bit more difficult than they were in years past. So, but I mean, he was still producing same type of Kopitar. I believe he led the team in points or was close right around the top. So no drop off there. So if he wants to come back for another year, I'm not going to say no to him. I mean, especially with how the Kings center grouping is kind of looking right now. I mean, we have Quint Byfield, I feel like can take that next step and be that heir apparent for Kopitar if he does decide to hang him up. But after that, it's like, how confident are you in Phil Deneau being your 2C and Alex Turcotte being your 3C and Samuel Lanius taking over the 4C role? I mean, it's not terrible. There's aren't bad options, but I mean, with Kopitar around, I feel like that still gives the Kings a little bit more flexibility. And I think the roster is better for it if he does decide to play 1 or 2 more years after. So we'll see. I hope it's not his last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to hang him up.
Adrian Kempe is a UFA after this coming season. I know how badly I want to see the Kings take care of this before the season starts. He's certainly given all indications that he wants to remain a King. There are reports he's looking for $10 million a year for what that's worth. Your thoughts on, is this going to get done before the season starts, and how concerned are you if it doesn't, that this goes into the season and becomes something?
I would definitely be concerned, to be honest with you. I mean, if it's December, January, and Kempe is still a free agent, yeah, that's when maybe some concerns should start to grow. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it comes to training camp and the Kings announce like an extension with Adrian Kempe. I mean, he has all indicated that he wants to stay in LA. He's not necessarily an outspoken type of guy. He likes to live in the shadows and be this quiet kind of guy. But I mean, he seems to have his ways set in LA and seems to like living in Los Angeles. So, I mean, when you have a player of his caliber, who I feel like is one of the superstars in the NHL, that's someone you desperately need to keep. And there shouldn't be any negotiating. I feel like, I know there is going to be, but I feel like with a player like Kempe, when you have someone like that on the roster and you have a ton of cap space to work with, whatever he's willing to take or asking for, you should just give him, to be honest with you. And if it's 10 million, give him 10 million. I think he's definitely worth that. I believe that could be a bargain for what he brings to the Kings. I mean, he's not just necessarily a sniper anymore. He's that all-around player that can play the penalty kill, power play, even defense at times. So, I mean, if he's willing to stay in LA, the Kings should do their best to keep him here and give him whatever he wants.
I always like talking to you, Russell, because you always are on the same page with me. I like that. Maybe it would be better to argue about one time. Maybe it would be better if we argued more. I don't know, but no, we think a lot alike. So it's always why it's fun to talk to you. And I love when I'm thinking something and you are saying the same thing. I'm like, all right, then maybe I know what I'm talking about. I do the same thing when I listen to your shows too, so it works. Well, that's good. That is Russell Morgan, covers the LA Kings for Hockey Royalty, hockeyroyalty.com. They've got a podcast as well you should check out. And of course, Russell, a great follow on X and Twitter at NHL Russell. Russell, I hope for your sake and my wife's sake, the Chargers have a good season. I will be rooting for you, except for November 9th when my Steelers come to town. But otherwise, I will wish you good luck, because happy wife, happy life. But we'll see what happens with the Chargers this year. It's something else we can certainly talk about next time I see you.
Yes, sir, Eddie. Go Bolts.
All right. That is Russell Morgan. Thanks, Russell.
Thanks, Ben.
All right. For you everydayers, those of you that listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on our next show, it is our fan feedback show, your chance to ask questions or share your thoughts and opinions about everything going on with the LA Kings. We've had some interesting things we've talked about this week. Hopefully there's something that got your attention or anything else you want to, it's your show, whatever's on your mind. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And if you're watching on YouTube, we always welcome your comments in the comment section, and thank you for those. We'd also like it if you could be interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.